Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone, and with me as always is my beautiful co-host Jackie, aka Wishes Mama. And tonight we're talking about advanced dining reservations, that is ADRs, and we're starting a new series about the best ADRs in Disney. So tonight we're specifically going to talk about Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom and their resort areas. So that's what we're diving into tonight. Jackie, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, and I'm excited for this. I don't do a ton of ADRs, just with, we typically will do quick services or we do a lot of packing lunches and things like that when we go into the parks. So it was really fun and interesting to look up all the menus and see what all the offerings were. And now I've got some places I want to try. So, that's good too.
That's great. Yeah, I'm specifically planning a trip for my family this summer. So it's nice to kind of think about it in the context of what would my kids like to eat or what places have my kids loved in the past. And it's really interesting, as we were planning this episode, you and I didn't necessarily agree on everything. We're like, let's do the top five. And we're like, well, which ones are the top five? And I feel like this is true of all the Disney community. Sometimes we have things that are like nostalgic, some things we like for the food, some things we like for the atmosphere. So, the five-ish with some honorable mentions we'll have, and we'll go through some of these as we go. But it was really interesting, right?
We always have such a hard time we to a list of with a certain number. I feel like every time we do lists of things, it's like 10-ish or 5-ish because we have too many things we want to share. But yes, it was so interesting because I truly came from this without having been at any of these places.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at the list, I was looking at what was on the menu and the cost point, because to me that is the one of the biggest things when it comes to ADRs.
Yes.
And I so I sent Kate my suggested list and she was like, well,
because I've been to a lot of these places and I've been to them with my children, and without my children in some cases, but with my children, and I know which ones they are asking to go back to because they made such an impression on them. So I think absolutely cost and menu have to be factors in there, especially with kids that are picky eaters and things like that. But also atmosphere and experience also has to play a part in it as well. So our goal here is to just give you the information about our recommendations and things that we have enjoyed in the past. And also we have our audience here as well as we record this live that might chime in about a few of their favorite ADRs as well. So we'll give you the information from our Mom Street community, and then you can make the best decision you can for your family based on that.
Yeah, and I will say we are really truly focusing on the best ADRs when you're traveling with kids. So this is not date night. This is not solo trip. No. This is when you're taking kids, you want to book those ADRs. What are the best options for you?
Right. And most of these will be in the parks just because that tends to be the most popular, but we will include some of the ones that are in the resorts area of the park we're talking about, just in case you are staying at those resorts or you want to get off property, because sometimes that is the best choice too for dining, is getting off property, going out of the park, not off property totally, but getting out of the park and going to a nearby resort might have the better food option anyway. So
yeah, definitely. And I will also just mention that we are not going to discuss any character meals in this series at any of the locations that we're getting ready to talk about for the next 4 episodes. We did already cover all of the character meal options in episode 43 of Mom Street USA. So if you're looking for information on your character meals and what characters are where and what offerings and all of that, that is the episode for you. This is going to focus more on the non-character meals and the meals at the resorts as well.
Right. So kicking it off, I think that we probably should head to Magic Kingdom first because I feel like that's the one we're always asked for the most. So what do we got first, Jackie?
Well, I will say Magic Kingdom had significantly more in their resort area and in parks. So this was the one that Kate and I were like, well, what about this one? Well, I'm not sure. What about this one? And Kate had some ideas and I had some ideas. And so we did our best to kind of merge our two philosophies together to bring you this list. So the first one that we're going to start with is actually one that I feel like people may or may not choose because it is an all you care to enjoy option. And that is Liberty Tree Tavern. We kind of piggybacked also Diamond Horseshoe because their menus are the same.
Right.
And the price point is the same and all of that. So Liberty Tree Tavern and Diamond Horseshoe, they do both offer lunch and dinner. Let me backtrack for a second and say that when we're looking at prices and menu comparisons, we're doing like lunch, dinner, because breakfast is hit or miss. So it was a lot easier to compare kind of across the board lunch and dinner. But you will see that some of these that we're going to talk about don't have both lunch and dinner. So we'll try our best to mention that for you guys as we go through.
And I also want to mention that I'll show a few pictures of the restaurants and food and stuff. And the resource for that is Disney Food Blog, which we've recommended before. They're a very great resource for kind of detailed information about what menus are and things like that. So, and they also have some great lists of recommendations of places and snacks and all that kind of thing too. So, yes. I'm going to just be showing a few pictures from them, but I wanted to give a shout out to them so they get credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, Liberty Tree Tavern and Diamond Horseshoe do offer lunch and dinner both. They are an all you care to enjoy menu. And when we are looking kind of over their menu, that means that there's no specific kids menu. So you'll hear us in some of the later locations talk about like kids menu options and what they have specifically on the kids menu because we are focused on kids. But this option is just a true all you can eat or all you care to enjoy, depending on what you like to call it. So it is $23 per child plus tax and gratuity. So this is more on the pricey side of the ones that we chose, just because it is that all you care to enjoy and it is a flat rate. So you don't have much variance when it comes to ordering different entrees or things like that off the kids menu. So their basic idea of what they do have some starters and some kind of appetizers. But basically you're going to be looking at a salad option. You're going to be looking at, they do have some dessert options, but then they've got roasted turkey, pot roast, oven roasted pork, and mashed potatoes, seasonal vegetables, herbed stuffing, and house-made mac and cheese.
I will say that the mac and cheese is like a win for pretty much everybody. I mean, if your kid likes mac and cheese, they're probably going to love that. And all of the meat that they have with it as well, the turkey, the pot roast, the pork, and the sides that go with it. Of course, my kids always skip the gravy. They think gravy's gross, but
that's so funny.
I don't know why. That I love cranberry sauce, but they can't get by gravy.
Yeah, I think that's probably fairly common. I will mention there is also plant-based options here as well. So Kathy B is saying over here in my end of the chat on TikTok that the vegan meatloaf was not bad, and she's not vegan, but it was something that they tried. So they do have an Impossible meatloaf with mashed potatoes, mushroom gravy, and seasonal vegetables. And they do have a plant-based warm apple cake as well.
Yeah, but I will say that the star of the show is the sticky toffee pudding. And if you get any other dessert, I'm going to question. No, I'm just kidding.
You're wrong.
For real, I like dream about that sticky toffee pudding. I would eat all of that just to get to the sticky toffee pudding. And when we went there, our waiter actually was just like, some people order it first because they don't want to get so full and not be able to eat it because it's that good.
I mean, that's pretty smart, not going to lie.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really good hack.
Save room for the sticky toffee pudding because it's really good.
Or order it at the beginning.
Order at the beginning, yes.
You're on vacation at Disney. You can do dessert first. No one tells you you can't there.
That's right. I see, I was just scrolling through here and I see bread and I also see cornbread too. So those are big for kids. You know, my kids like, if I buy a thing of rolls, their rolls are gone in like a day because that's what my kids want to eat. So
all the carbs.
Definitely a kid-friendly. My kids loved the food there. And the atmosphere is really unique, especially in Liberty Tree Tavern. It's kind of like going back to colonial times and all of the rooms are themed after like a figure in American history. So you can also have a little education, little edutainment there with the rooms in Liberty Tree Tavern. It's a really fun experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you prefer the atmosphere in Liberty Tree Tavern over Diamond Horseshoe? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't actually been physically in the Diamond Horseshoe in Walt Disney World because it's only been like a reservation. I was like, I always just choose. I personally choose Liberty Tree just because it's really neat to have that kind of colonial vibe to it. But I think that the kids probably would also like Diamond Horseshoe. But I probably would lean towards Liberty Tree myself, especially because they're exactly the same menu. And it's like, it seems to make more sense to have this like Thanksgiving dinner in like this old colonial vibe area, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Fits the vibe totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just curious what your input was on that.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we hop to choice number 2?
Yeah. We're going to head over to the Plaza, which is really interesting because it's different, really same-ish, but super different than the one that's in Disneyland. So if you're used to the one in Disneyland, it's not the same thing. It's not like a buffet like you have there. It's definitely a table service restaurant. And it's a lot smaller, like crazy. You would think Magic Kingdom would be bigger, but it's not. It's way smaller.
It is small. Like I have walked past it. I think I walked past it for years without realizing that it was even there.
Yeah, it's located roughly in the same place as it is in Disneyland. So it's, you know, it's on Plaza Street, so to speak, is what they would call that area there in Disneyland. But it has lunch and dinner. It's got 5 options. It's hamburger, cheeseburger, grilled chicken strips, turkey sandwich, PB&J are all good for kids. So there's a lot of, it's a very kid-friendly menu. And we've dined there once. And I was like, this is fine. It wasn't like I was like blown away by it that I'm like, I have to come back here, you know? And the atmosphere was pretty, but it was so small. It was really loud in there, quite honestly.
Yeah. And I think the main reason that this one made our list was just because it did have a little bit different of a menu for kiddos.
Yeah.
So if you've got really specific eaters, really picky eaters, you know, they do have some different options with like a turkey sandwich or that PB&J. So those different options are nice to have, especially if you're going to be eating maybe multiple meals, multiple ADRs inside of Magic Kingdom. Having something a little bit different can be really helpful for your kids.
Yeah, and the price point is definitely better there than a lot of other ADRs. And I always feel like it should have more reservations than it does, but it's so small that it doesn't. You know, that's the only reason why like they're gone is because, but I don't think it's anybody's like, this is my top pick for going. It kind of looks like this inside. It's kind of Victorian-ish, but it's not highly ornate and detailed like it is in Disneyland. So for me, it's always a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, when you're used to that, I could see that. Kate mentioned the price point. I will just kind of throw out there that your kids' entrees at the Plaza are going to be anywhere from $10.50 up to $12, and that typically includes their like main dish that they're choosing, and then a choice of a beverage, and then they do have some little appetizers, soup and apples and grapes and salad and those types of things. So all very, very kid friendly and fairly budget friendly as well.
Yeah, I feel like my kids didn't complain about the food while they were there. That's how I'm like judging some of these, right? Did my kids complain that they had nothing they wanted to eat or not?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, and this is part of the conversation that Kate and I had as we were making up this list, is I grew up a very, very picky eater, and going out to eat gave me a lot of anxiety as a child.
Yeah.
And it still even does as an adult, because I'm still fairly picky. There are things that I won't eat, or I like things very plain if I am going to, you know, go out. So looking at a menu and only seeing maybe one option that I will hopefully like, as a kid, I can very like vividly recall that. So having some of these restaurants and some of these menus, and some of the reason why I chose some of the ones that I did was just because I saw 2 or 3 options that my kids aren't super picky, but they're particular. You know, and I saw 2 or 3 options and I'm like, okay, yes, this looks like a solid choice. My kids aren't going to feel like they don't have a choice, you know, because I don't want to take that away from them when it's so much fun to go out to eat, and we don't do it very often. So if we're going to go out to eat, I want to make it something special and fun for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can get behind that. But that's where you and I were kind of like, but wait a minute, because I was like, because not that we go out to eat all the time at home, we barely ever do, but when we're at Disney, because my husband's such a foodie, I tend to prioritize food for him.
Yeah.
So we have tried a lot of these restaurants, and the ones that my kids love the most are not necessarily anything to do with the food. It's everything to do with the atmosphere of what it is. So that's why I was just like, but you have to think of the atmosphere at the same time. So I think there's a balance between the two. And you also know your kids. If you have very, very picky eater kids, then you're probably going to lean towards the ones that have more food options for them. If you know your kids like will eat almost anything, then you have more options of where to go. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So let's hop over now to our number 3 on our list, which is Tony's Town Square, which Kate and I had a little bit of a discussion about this one, that they have made some improvements to their menu recently.
Yeah.
And we've heard very good things about the improvements that they've made to their menu recently.
Yeah, I used to never recommend this, never, because it was basically just overpriced, really cheap spaghetti, and it was not good. But everything that I've heard recently about their menu is like, this is something that's back on my list as an adult that I would like to eat at. Because pasta is always a solid bet for most kids. You can get it various ways, or with or without sauce or butter, all the things. Like pasta's a easy one for kids, but it wasn't always a great option for parents.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So at Tony's, you will find only 3 options on their kids menu. But I do feel like you said, pasta is a fairly safe choice for a lot of kiddos. And they have some really good side options too here, which I thought was helpful when you're like looking at like building your meal, so to speak. So the options, they do have lunch and dinner here. The options that they have for the kids meal is a grilled chicken with roasted potatoes, a whole wheat spaghetti with turkey meatball, and mac and cheese. So all good options with that. And then they have a lot of really good sides. They've got several different veggies and fruits and things like that the kids can choose from too.
Yeah, the theming is really cute too. Lady
So
and the Tramp.
cute.
So if your kids are Lady and the Tramp fans, they'll probably really enjoy that atmosphere as well.
Mm-hmm. And if we're looking at prices, the first 2 that I mentioned, the chicken and potatoes and the spaghetti, are $12.50, and the mac and cheese is $11.50. So again, a lot of the entrees that you're going to find are between that $10 and $12 range, kind of. So this one fits right in the middle of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would give this a try. I'm really looking forward to going back and trying this one. I just haven't gotten to it in the last couple trips because they've been really quick ones, but it's definitely on my list of like things to do, except for now my kids only want to go back to the places they've already been to. So it's hard to
get them to try something new.
Let's try something new.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we want to go to this. And they don't go very often. So they're like, this is all I want to go to because that's what I know. I'm like, okay, that's fair.
It is fair. Yeah.
It's fair.
I mean, aren't we all the same way? We find that one like dish that we like, and then whenever we go back, we're like, I got to get that again. It was so good.
Right. I know. We're creatures of habit.
Yes. There's
a whole bunch of studies done too that showed that if you feel guilty about always ordering the same thing at your favorite restaurant, that they said you're actually like, you're so much happier when you do have that favorite thing because it brings you joy and happiness. So you should stop feeling guilty about it and just order it anyway. And I was like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That makes me feel better about the fact that I literally, every time we go out to eat, it's always like wherever we go, I have a thing at every restaurant that we would ever go to. That's like, nope, that's my order.
Do, right? Like there's maybe some people that just want to try something new every time, but I'm kind of like, maybe I'll try one small thing new, but I want my main entree to be like the thing I like,
Well, and I feel like my husband, for example, he like rotates through a couple. So like we could go somewhere and I would be like, oh, do you want this again? And he's like, no, I think I'll do this. So like he rotates through a couple different options. So
yeah, I think Elliot does the same. Well, Erin says I have the same issue with staying at the same resorts. Yeah. That's also the thing. It's like you have your home resort that you feel at home at.
Yeah.
And unless you're just on a budget, and then you just stay at the cheap ones. So.
But there's also something to be said for like returning back to a resort, regardless of if it's whatever
true.
resort it is.
It's
like
true.
Returning back, your second trip, you always feel more at home than you did your first trip.
Yeah. Courtney says, I always say I choose things or the same things over and over because it genuinely brings me joy. Right.
Yeah.
So if it brings you joy, don't feel guilty about it. Just do it.
Yeah,
It's fine.
exactly. I think this next one brings Kate joy. Kate, do you want to talk about the next one on our list?
Yes, I'm so excited about this one. This is the Skipper Canteen, which is located in Adventureland, and it's technically like the Jungle Cruise Navigation Company Limited Skipper Canteen. It's got a very long title to it, but we all call it the Skipper Canteen because who's going to remember any of that? It's available for lunch and dinner, and I will say the atmosphere here is spectacular. It has a few different rooms that you can be in. You can be in the main crew mess hall, or you can be in like the family library, family area, the family room, or you can be in the secret room behind the secret bookcase, which is the Society of Explorers and Adventurers meeting room. So the theming here is something that you want to take some time to linger and look at if your kids will allow you to do it. Maybe sometimes you can do some exploring with them to find different animals and things like that, because it's themed of the Jungle Cruise, but to like the nth degree. So it's the theming is amazing. Anyway, I will say that in terms of kids eating there, there's a couple of options for kids, including a coconut curry concoction, grilled steak, mac and cheese, and crispy chicken. Right?
Yes.
So
now, I kind of want to read the full names off the menu because they're all themed. Kate was talking about the theming. So it's like Congo Connie's coconut curry concoction and the Sizzling Savannah grilled steak, Junior Skips macaroni and cheese. And I don't know how to say, is it Tanjai? Is it a J? Tanjai? Tandaji?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me.
Chef Tandaji's. I'm going to go with that. Crispy chicken, which it's just the themes are fun. The names are fun. Even if I can't pronounce them, it's still fun.
And your server as well is dressed as a skipper, and they tell skipper like jokes throughout your meal. So that's a really fun theme in that way as well. Kids get a good giggle out of that. And I asked my youngest what was her favorite place to eat, and she was like, Skipper Canteen. I was like, wow, okay. Because a lot of people will say they don't recommend this one for kids because the flavor palette is a little bit unique. It's a little bit more, leans more like Asian, or, like it's got different flavors to it that may not be for all, but they have such great kid options here that aren't super, super weird, that my kids loved it. They thought it was amazing. So yeah, take that for what it is.
Yeah. And the price, honestly, is, again, fairly similar to what we've been seeing. The steak option is $14.50, but it's steak. So that's kind of to be expected when you're comparing those prices. But the mac and cheese is $11.50. The chicken is $12.50, so you definitely have a little bit more of a spread there, but it makes sense based on what you're getting. And they do have some unique sides even for the kids. Like they've got jade rice, they've got marbled potatoes, some different options that are not too terribly adventurous, but a little different than what you typically get.
Yeah, and their chicken there, you can also ask for like without the sauce and things like it usually comes with this kind of sauce you can see. But you can get it without the sauce if you prefer more of just like chicken strip kind of a vibe to it, and like plain rice. You can ask for things to not have all the stuff on them. And they're usually pretty good about accommodating that, especially for children. So there's lots of options there. But my kids liked it a lot. So even my son, who's super picky about what he eats, because they had mac and cheese, right?
Yeah.
So he was good as long as they had mac and cheese.
Right.
We're solid.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I think something to be said about, you hear mac and cheese on the list a lot. Something that my husband and I have really done, and I know people think I'm crazy because I plan out all of our meals ahead of time on my spreadsheet.
You're crazy.
But
You're not crazy.
But honestly, the reason that I started doing that was for our kids, so that way we weren't repeating the same meals back to back to back. So that way we gave them some variety. So like if we knew that we were going to go to Skipper Canteen, for example, and I know that my daughter's going to get the mac and cheese, well, wherever we go the next night, I need to make sure there's something else that she can have on the menu that's not mac and cheese. She would eat mac and cheese happily, but I don't know that I necessarily want her to eat mac and cheese. every night of our entire
That's
Disney
fair.
vacation.
That's like the only time I allow my son to just have it every night is
Right.
on at Disney. The rest of the time I'm like, no, sir. Like, you have to eat like what I'm making for dinner. You can't just have mac and cheese.
Not gonna lie, she will have it probably 3 or 4 times throughout the week in different meals, but we try to give some variety just for her own good.
Yeah, no, I think that's why.
And same with my son. He would eat pizza every single night if we let him. So we try to make sure that he's not having pizza every single meal.
And there is luckily enough options at Disney where you can make that happen. Even if it's a rotation from like pizza to mac and cheese to like cheeseburger, like at least
then back again. Yes, exactly. And that's why I have a spreadsheet, so that way I can make sure that wherever we're going to eat, that it gives them some more variety, because they eat it better, honestly. Like for my kids in that moment, like having that little, even if it's just a tiny little bit of variety of a rotation, they're going to eat it better. They're not going to get sick of it. Because, the worst thing would be you plan on them doing mac and cheese 2 nights in a row, and the second night they're like, I don't really want it. And that's the only thing that they'll eat off the menu. Or, you know, I just had it last night, maybe they're in a mood. You never know. They're kids. My kids are 5 and 7. Like, you literally never know. So trying to give them some options and trying to make sure that wherever we go, they have at least 2 options to choose between is something that I really like to try to do for them. And that's where my spreadsheet comes into play.
I get it. It's fair. We don't do that. I usually just ask my kids like what restaurant because they've been to them before, which ones they like. Or we'll look at the menu of them and be like, does any of this stuff look good? If they find something they're like, get really excited about, then they're like, no, I want to eat there because I want to have that thing. Yeah. And you just pray that they still have that thing by the time you go, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, and your kids are a little older and they have been to more of these restaurants. So I think that's helpful when it comes to that. Whereas like
just 2 of my kids are pickier eaters, but one of them is not. But like, I'd say 2 of mine are like, they probably would find something to eat. And the only other one is my son, who is very, very picky. But even he will find something usually at most of these places without a problem. So
yeah. Well, and my kids ask to go back to some of the like quick service places that we've done before. So like they know that when we go to Pinocchio Village House, there's those windows that overlook Small World. So they ask to go sit, you know what I mean? Those types of things. So it's the same, but we just do more quick service than we do the ADRs. So that makes it a little bit tricky.
Yeah. I will say, if you go to the Skipper Canteen, we did a 2-episode series on the Skipper Canteen, history of the Skipper Canteen, and all the little details in it for our History of Kate and Kirk podcast. So we did, in case you want to do a deep dive into it before you go and learn all the things to look for, that's where you can find all the information. So I won't get into much of it here. But if you do nothing else, go and look at all the books on the bookcase and read some of them. Yeah, you probably won't get through all of them, but just read a couple of them because they're funny, and you can read them out loud to your kids because a lot of them are jokes and they're all family appropriate. So yeah,
absolutely. That would be my suggestion too. And I am not affiliated with that podcast.
Okay. All right. Well, also I will just mention that thing I also really like about Skipper Canteen is it is a little bit more on the affordable side. So it's not a super, super, super expensive meal, but it has a really fun theming to it. And you kind of get a character in that your server is like a skipper. So, it's not like the Disney characters, but it's like, you know what I mean? So it's fun.
Yes. It's theming from head to toe.
Yes. Enough about Skipper Canteen. We should move on.
Alrighty, let's talk about number 5 on our list of Magic Kingdom ADRs. And for this one, we actually are going to leave the park. So we're going to hop on the monorail and we're going to take the monorail around. Or we're going to take a boat. And we're going to go across the water over to the Polynesian Resort and to Kona Cafe. So this one was one that, again, we kind of picked because it had some different options from what you typically see at ADRs for kids. They do have lunch and dinner at Kona Cafe, but they have 4 options, and their options on the kids menu include a grilled chicken taco, cheeseburger, macaroni and cheese, and they also have these really cute kids sushi rolls. It's fully cooked sushi. It's like little like chicken nuggets essentially inside of the sushi rolls. So that is a super fun option that you
Oh my
can
gosh, I just
pick
got a
for
picture
your
of it
kids.
and it's really cute. It's like Mickey is
Yeah.
inside there.
Mm-hmm.
Cute.
Yes. So super, super cute options there. Again, 10.50, 11.50, 12.50 for those options for Kona Cafe. And the thing that's nice about this is not only do they have some different options, but like Kate mentioned, sometimes it's nice to get out of the park for a little bit. So if you can plan that accordingly on your Magic Kingdom day, it's a nice little escape.
Yeah, and I struggle with Magic Kingdom. I'm there a lot. I spend a lot of time there when I do visit Disney World because I'm that's where a lot of the content I need is at. And I struggle with the food there so much because I have a couple of things that are like my go-tos, but I'm not a crazy fan of the quick service there. I know we're not talking quick service, but I'm like some of the quick services I'm like, it's fine. Like I have a
Right.
couple of things that I know I can eat and it'll be solid.
Right.
But and the ADRs though, the restaurants that have table service are tend to be I like them a little bit more, but I'm like
Mm-hmm.
hardly ever eating there. So I have like gone off to explore and some
Mm-hmm.
of the I'd say some of the restaurants that are around the Magic Kingdom do have some better food options for quick service as well as even table service in some
Mm-hmm.
instances. So getting over to the Polynesian is also like I think you and I talked about this, Jackie. It's kind of like it's a really fun little escape because it's what did your kids call it? They said it was
Oh,
like
they call it the Tiki Hotel or the
the
Tiki
Tiki Hotel.
Resort. Yeah, because we ended up going there. We were going to try Kona Cafe and then our ADRs shifted because Topolino's became available on our last
Yeah.
trip. So we canceled our Kona Cafe in favor of Topolino's, but we ended up eating at the quick service at the Polynesian. And they loved it, like just being
Yeah.
in such a different atmosphere. And then we did go back another night to get Dole Whip there too, but the atmosphere is so much fun for the kids to go and just like look around, and they like wanted to go and look at the like the gift shop and stuff there because they have like cool like tiki statues and all sorts of stuff. So it was just like a really cool, like you said, escape from like the Magic Kingdom area.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, going to a different country, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, it's like a very different vibe and it does feel more relaxed and calm, which is
Mm-hmm.
also really helpful for kids that are maybe getting a little overstimulated from being in the parks. So that can also be a really nice way to just take a little break and get away from the hustle and bustle of the parks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So again, that's Kona Cafe at the Polynesian. So one option that will give you kind of outside the parks for that. And then we mentioned that we're really bad at limiting our lists to how many we're supposed to be giving you. So Kate has an honorable mention that she wanted to talk about for our Magic Kingdom list.
Yes, and this, of course, is Be Our Guest, which is one of the most difficult ones to get, ADRs to get, because it's so popular. And I will say again, it's the theming, it's the experience of going in. They do have the last time I was there, I don't know if this has changed because they used to have like you'd meet and greet with the beast was different than it is. I think he's still just walking around like he
As far
has
as
been
I
for a
know.
while.
Yeah.
So
So
they'll
we
kind of
don't,
like announce him and
yeah.
they'll come out, we'll applaud, and then he'll want to run around the room and like wave at you, and then he'll go away for a while, then he'll come back out in a little while.
So it's a questionable character dining experience, but we don't really consider it character dining because it's not even like he's coming table to table like you would get at somewhere where you are doing a true character meal. He literally is just wandering through.
Yeah. But so in the main ballroom is like the biggest dining area, which does get a little bit loud. So just FYI, in case you have kids with sensitivity to noise. But the windows, which you can't see in this picture, it makes it look like it's snowing outside. So if you sit near the window and every once in a while, like a flurry comes by and it like changes up, it's actually really quite
So
enchanting.
pretty. Yeah.
My kids like to sit in the was in the West Wing, like the
Mhm.
part where the beast has destroyed the room and it's super dark where you can barely see your food. Um, and there's like his portrait, which his claws have been slashed over it. And then
Yeah.
they have the rose, the enchanted rose, that every
Mhm.
once in a while the lightning will flash in the room and it will drop a petal. And
Mhm.
it's just really a really
It's
neat
so pretty.
experience.
And
Yeah. And then
the
they
theming is just so well done.
yeah. And I haven't actually sat in, I've walked around it, the other room on the other side. that has like the portrait galleries, and then they have a big
Mm-hmm.
statue that I think rotates of Belle and the Beast in the middle. But it's just it's
Yes.
really like just a spectacular location. They used to let you choose where to sit, and now they just kind of assign you a seat and make you sit there. But the food is the downside is it's very, very expensive. And the food quality is not as good as it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not bad. It's not like
Yeah.
inedible. It's just like I for sure had boxed mashed potatoes instead of real mashed potatoes last time I was there. I was like, this is not what I
That's
expected
not
for
it.
this price point. Yeah.
No.
So, take that for what it is, but
Right.
the experience itself is pretty neat. Do you want to talk a little bit about the food for kids there?
Yeah. So they do have lunch and dinner at Be Our Guest, and it is a set price. So it's not price dependent on what you order. The child price is $41 per child, and that's ages 3 to 9. I should have mentioned that previously, but that's kind of what the Disney category for kids when it comes to kids menus. So $41 per child plus tax and gratuity. Do keep in mind that it is $70 per adult. Like Kate mentioned, it is more on the spendy side when it comes to that, but that is the price for that. They do have several options for the kiddos. They have a pan-seared chicken breast. They have grilled steak. They have pan-seared shrimp. They have chicken strips, and they have house-made macaroni and cheese. It's very specific on the menu.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it was just like everything else that we had everywhere else. Just saying, it didn't look that much different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they did, I feel like, I don't know if they still do this. When we went, they had a really fun dessert for the kids. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up for you here. And it's this little chip. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with this. Okay. It's this little chip cup that you can paint with like frosting.
Cute.
It's made out of white chocolate, so then they can eat it. And then, of course, they have the gray stuff with it as well. And a little truffle for the kids.
Yeah, I
too.
wonder if they have a dessert trio on the menu. It just says dessert trio. I wonder if that's what that is.
Yeah, this is, well,
Oh
there's
yeah,
a dessert.
it says it right there. If I would
Yeah.
read, it says
There's a
dessert
dessert
platter.
trio for the kids, and then the adult one is way more adult. So I feel like we have like a Grand Marnier truffle and a couple of other things, but for the kids, they keep it.
Yeah, the adult is a chocolate tart, a dark chocolate truffle, and a lemon jam macaron.
And they were really good. So save room for those if you do go for that. But for those of you who maybe haven't been a Be Our Guest for many, many years, it is just a different experience than it used to be. We used to love it for breakfast and lunch. It was like a reasonable cost, and it was really fun experience, and the food was really, really good. And now it's just a lot more expensive. You don't have that meet and greet with the Beast, and the food is yeah, it's maybe some of it is really, really good. Like I think we had one of the best steaks I've had in a while there, so that's saying something. But I would just say it's not as good as it used to be. Christina says I've heard recently the food's been getting better, probably because there's been a lot of reviews of like what's going on with the quality of the food here. So
Yeah.
take that for what it's worth. I think it's still worth it though, even at the price, at least once. I think it's a one and done maybe for that price point. Just like Cinderella's Royal Table. I don't know if we'll ever dine there again just because it's so expensive, but having the experience at least once, I think is a really, really special. So if you're celebrating a birthday or a special occasion, or you just really want to splurge on like one really cool thing, I'd say Be Our Guest is a win for the kids for that.
Yeah. Well, in places like Be Our Guest, I feel like are especially fun if you're a family who's done like the Bippity Boppity Boutique, or you have a kiddo who loves Beauty and the Beast. There are certain aspects of that I feel like can make it a little bit more special. But yeah, I mean, Todd said here on my side of the chat that I thought it was very spendy for what it actually was.
Yeah, you're paying a lot for the atmosphere, the experience of being there at this point. And yeah, people are asking they don't have breakfast anymore. Yeah, they don't have breakfast anymore like they used to. I was hoping that would return, but it doesn't look like it is leaning that way. Looks like it's just going to be lunch and dinner.
Yeah. So. Well, and they used to have like a quick service type, like
it was like
option,
quick service
right?
For breakfast and lunch was quick service,
right? And then dinner
and
was
choose your table
prefix.
Yeah, you still had to it was
like a walk up list that you like. I remember people lining up outside of Be Our Guest when they used to have the more like quick service, because I don't think there was no like mobile order or anything like that. So it was like first come,
Yeah.
first serve kind of deal.
I'm trying to remember. It's been so long now, but it's not that way anymore. Now you have to have a reservation. There might still be walk-ups for any of these ADRs. Sometimes the day of, you can do walk-up reservations if they're available. Just check on your My Disney Experience app, and it'll tell you if you navigate to the dining tab of it and you go to the restaurant, it'll tell you if there's a walk-up available or if it's full. So you could always try that if you weren't able to get an ADR.
And if you're not picky about what time, because it's one of those things that, you know what I mean? That like you get called when you get called, and you either take it or you miss out and don't go.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. And I will mention before because that kind of wraps up our Magic Kingdom area, but before we hop over to Animal Kingdom, we have mentioned before, and I'll just mention again in this episode, that there are several different places that you can sign up for alerts for dining. So if you hop on the morning that your dining opens and you don't get somewhere like Be Our Guest, you can go to Mouse Dining is one option that you can do, where you can sign up for text alerts through there or email alerts for different ones that you're looking at. And then Kate, you have another one that you've used before, right?
Yeah, Unlocked Magic. They have I think they have a Mr. Link in bio if you're here with us live, but I am an affiliate for them, so I'm just going to disclose that fully. But I have used them over the past year because I wanted to see how I've always used Mouse Dining and or Touring Plans also has one as well. But I wanted to see how it works, and actually it's quite good because it does a text alert, which a lot of those other services don't necessarily do texting unless you pay a lot for it. Right. So. And it has unlimited. You can use unlimited ones. So I've really enjoyed using that one. It's been really helpful to find the reservations I do need. But yeah, those reservation finders in general are very, very helpful if you kind of missed out on your ADR date, especially. Yeah.
And I've seen a couple people in my chat here mention that like same day reservations will pop up. Or like week of or day before. So it's definitely, don't feel discouraged if you're like on your way and you haven't gotten that ADR that you want. Have faith that something will pop up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it usually does, like right before the day, people will cancel because their plans change, or they were holding extra ones. They didn't. That's a whole nother conversation. But But that does happen where people have been kind of like hoarding their reservations, and then they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to this one and this one and this one, so I'm going to cancel these ones. And then that does make it so that there's last minute reservations in that way. So I guess that's good for that. But
And do keep in mind that previously Disney's policy was different, but it's currently now a 2-hour cancellation policy. So if you're looking for a 2:00 time, be checking the app between that like 11 and 12 o'clock hour, because that is the time that people are going to have to be canceling without having to like pay a fee.
Right. Yeah. It used to be 24 hours in advance.
I think so. Yeah.
It's they've shortened it quite a bit. It's interesting. They shortened the timelines for a lot of things they used to have longer timelines for.
Yeah. I don't really. Yeah. I'm sure there's some logical reasoning behind it, I guess, but
I know that a lot of people the day of they were having to make exceptions of that couldn't make it to their reservation because their plans changed, which happens a lot at Disney. So.
Well, I mean, I told you all, and if you missed it, we had an issue with that with Topolino's because my kids were sick. They got sick overnight, and I had to call and cancel it, and I was like literally trying to do it as the 2-hour window happened, and it I ended up having to call and talk to someone. But I literally was telling the cast member, like, I really don't want to bring my sick child to your restaurant, so like, can you please cancel this?
Right. Which, and they do, they're understanding about that usually. So
yes
because they don't want that either.
Right, exactly. Like I don't want to, but like if you're gonna charge me for it anyway, then I'm gonna come eat.
Yep. Yeah, and it's $10 per person, right? So it can add up if you've got a whole family. That's a lot of money for not showing up. So make sure you cancel your reservations if you're not going to use them, friends. Yeah, just saying.
And if you are within that 2-hour window, call and talk to the very nice cast members, explain what happened, and cross your fingers because you're at their mercy a little bit when it comes to being under that 2-hour window.
Yeah, and I will say there was a time when we just got really hung up with a whole bunch of transportation nonsense that happened to us, and we were going to be like 45 minutes late for a reservation.
Mhm.
Not because of anything we did, just like some monorail chaos happened.
Oh
And
no.
so we couldn't get to the park in time, and I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to charge us. Oh my gosh." And so I called and I asked, and they were like, "Oh no, we usually give you like an hour grace period, and if it's anything beyond that, just call us and we'll like work it out." I was like, "Okay." Like they
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
So don't have a panic attack if you're going to be a little bit late.
No.
I mean, yeah, but don't expect always to be late and abuse it either. So try to be on time to your
Yes.
reservations. But if you are going to be late because of something that's out of your control, just know that you can talk to somebody about it, and hopefully you can still get in the restaurant if they have availability for you.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. All right. Shall we take a bus to Animal Kingdom?
Yeah, let's go. It's always a bus. Oh, the buses. I feel like I have trauma from the buses from this last trip. It's like all buses. All
Yeah,
buses.
they're so hit or miss. They're so hit or miss.
It's the best thing in the world is the feeling when the Caterpillar like double bus shows up, and you're like, everybody's getting on. You
Yeah.
get a bus, and you get a bus, and you get a bus. We're all getting on.
Especially if you're like counting and you're like, "Ooh, I don't know if we're gonna make this one. We might have to wait for the next
right?
one." And then the double best ever. Best
Now I'm
ever.
cursed where it's always like they won't let me on, especially when I'm just by myself.
Right,
I'm
you're like,
I'm
I'm
just
just one
one
person.
person.
I can squeeze. I can
I
make
can
myself small.
But yeah, good times with the bus. Anyway, so let's take the bus over to Animal Kingdom. And we're headed to Yak and Yeti
Yes.
for lunch or dinner.
Yes. Yak and Yeti has a really great menu. So it does have some things that are a little bit different, maybe, or a little bit unusual for kids to try. But they have 8 options on their kids menu, which I think is probably, one of the most of all of the research that I've done so far. So that is really exciting. And the prices are all $11.49 no matter what you order. So the kids' options are a cheeseburger. They have stir-fry noodles. They have chicken fried rice. They have mini corn dogs. They have a grilled chicken breast, mac and cheese, teriyaki chicken breast, and chicken tenders. So a really, really great kids menu at Yak and Yeti.
I mean, it's very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of options there. And it's really interesting. I've seen, just kind of researching for this, I've been to Yak and Yeti once, but only with adults. And this is actually like a little bit controversial. There's some people that just swear they will never go back to Yak and Yeti because they had such an awful time. And there's people that are like, it's a must every time I go because it's so good. So it's very, very interesting dynamic with this restaurant because some people either love it or hate it. It's very polarizing.
I didn't know it was polarizing.
I know.
Hot
Dwayne
take,
says
apparently.
the chicken fried rice. My son loves the chicken fried rice. That's what Dwayne says. So yeah, so there's lots of really good options there for kids.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that my kids would be like willing to try.
Yeah,
when we
it's a
went there.
really interesting. The decor in there is very interesting too. That it's not themed like Disney themed, it's themed like country themed for because you're in Anandapur, right? So it's like it's a fake country that Disney invented, but it is this very much a style of that part of the world. So they have all kinds of interesting antiques and whatnot that are inside. That's fascinating to look at all the different things. So
yeah, it very much like it just fits perfectly. I feel like when you look at that, coming from when you're at, the different attractions around in that area, I feel like it's just very perfect. And Todd has some really good advice that I was going to mention. So thanks for reminding me, Todd. Advice for Yak and Yeti: join the Landry's Club because they are part of that.
Oh, I forgot about that. Thank you, Todd. It's true.
Yes. So they have essentially like a membership card. I don't have one because I've never needed one, but I know a lot of people
Not
that
a frequent to Yak and Yeti, are you?
I am not, but that's not to say that they don't have good food. But basically that gives you a better chance at getting a reservation, better chance at getting walk up I don't know for sure, and maybe Todd, you can help out with this if they do a discount for that. I know there's like a deal when you sign up that you get like a gift card for signing up too. So like I know there's a couple other perks with that membership card that they have.
That's good advice. Yeah. Dwayne says only $25 for the membership card, and you get that back plus preferred seating.
Okay, that's what it was. It's you pay $25 to join, but then they give it back to you in a gift card to use. So
yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, especially if you like know you're going to be going and you're going to use it on your trip, like just do it ahead of time because it probably takes a couple days for that transaction.
Yeah, that's neat.
Oh, I think T-Rex is one of them. The T-Rex location in Disney Springs, I think, is another one that's on there. Oh, Todd says you can do it there. It's not an issue. So it must be super quick whenever you join. So that's good to know.
Yeah,
so if you forget, there you go.
I think the price point is also really good at Yak and Yeti as well. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's very fairly affordable.
Mm-hmm.
You listed the price here as $11.49. I feel like that's super affordable for Disney.
Yeah.
Probably because it's a third-party vendor. So, just saying.
Right. Yeah, I think that probably has. And it's always nice for budgeting when everything is the same price on the menu, not gonna lie. Like, I understand why there are differences when it comes to something like mac and cheese versus steak.
Or shrimp or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's nice for budgeting purposes when you know that no matter what your kids are going to pick off of the somewhat extensive menu that they have there, that it's going to be $11.50. So that's helpful.
Right. That's true. Well, should we move on to our next stop?
Yes.
Good with Yak and Yeti? Okay. So this one was one that I suggested we put on here. And this is not in Animal Kingdom. This is in the Animal Kingdom Lodge. Specifically, this is in Jumbo House. So there's Animal Kingdom Lodge has Kidani and they have Jumbo House, and they're right next to each other, but they're not the same. So they're two different spaces. But Boma is inside Jumbo House. And for me, this is like a must anytime we're staying in the Animal Kingdom area. It's a little bit of a trek to get there if you're in the park, because especially if you're using Disney transportation, you're going to have to take a bus to it and a bus back. So it's not like a super easy like stroll or something to it, but it is worth it in that the food is spectacular and it's a really interesting taste palette for that's more like African flavors of food. But there are also things that are just kind of like your regular buffet fare. So there's literally something for everybody there for every taste palette. And the breakfast is particularly really good there. If you can't get there for breakfast, dinner is good too as well. Do you want to talk about what's available for dinner there?
Yes. So they do have kind of an extensive list of, and it even says partial listing on the Disney website or like on your app if you're looking up menus. But they've got breads, they've got hummus, they've got a chickpea salad, they've got couscous and shrimp, they've got a North African cauliflower salad, spiced green beans with golden raisins, black-eyed peas, greens, and oh goodness. It looks like it says...
You always get the hard things to pronounce.
Why do I do this for myself? Greens, and it looks like chakalaka. So I'm going to go with that.
I don't know.
They have a peanut rice or a coconut rice on rotation. They have then a ton of really accessible options for kids. They've got mac and cheese. They've got chicken bites. They've got penne pasta with marinara and meatballs. They've got herb crushed potatoes, sweet corn pudding. They've got lamb, chicken, pork ribs, beef strip loin, butternut squash soup. They've got all sorts of stuff. And that's, like they said, that's a partial listing.
Menu. Massive. And they've got all kinds of pastries and breads and all the things. Like it's everywhere. And I will say that I actually prefer breakfast here, I think, over dinner, especially with kids. Of the breakfast foods, you've got some of the standard fare. I think they have the Simba waffles there instead of the Mickey waffles, but they've got lots of really fun stuff. I feel like with dinner, they also have the zebra dome cakes there, which are that's also kind of like a polarizing thing. People either love or hate the zebra dome cakes. I was so excited to try it, and then I didn't like it, and I was so sad. I was like, what is this?
I was looking to see. Yeah, so the breakfast menu just says waffles. It doesn't specify on there what it is. And they don't have their desserts. Yeah, they don't have their desserts on their menu because they probably rotate out and have seasonal stuff when it comes to that.
But they have so many options. I'd be shocked if your child couldn't find something they wanted from that buffet. It's just massive. It is a little bit spendier. It's $33 per child. I feel like breakfast is about the same price point, but I haven't looked it up.
Let me look.
But I will say
breakfast is $22 per child.
Okay, so breakfast is more affordable.
A little bit more affordable.
Yeah. So that's why I say I'd probably recommend breakfast just because it's a little more affordable and it's just really good. And you get the pog juice too that you can have with it.
And again, when we were looking up these, it was much easier just to kind of compare dinner and lunch across the board. So that's kind of what we're focusing on. But yes, we will definitely mention if we
but this like one Kate said, breakfast is like what people go to BOMA for is breakfast. So but yeah, I definitely think, and the theming is fun. It's not overtly anything, but the lodge itself is an adventure to go to, just like going to the Poly, because you can go and see the animals. You can go out and walk in the outdoor area and actually take a look at the zebras and the giraffes and all the animals that are grazing on the savannah. So you don't have to be staying at the resort to go and see the animals there, which is really fun. So that's neat for the kids.
Yeah. And I will just, because we were talking about breakfast, read you through. For breakfast, they've got muffins, pancakes, waffles, breakfast potatoes, bacon and sausage, cinnamon raisin bread. They've got carved ham. They've got coconut steel cut oatmeal. They've got turkey. They've got omelets, a bunch of different kinds of omelets, cinnamon rolls, sticky buns, deviled eggs with smoked salmon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yogurt parfaits. They've got avocado, papaya, grapefruit salad. They've got sorry. So lots and lots of options on that buffet as well for BOMA.
Yeah, now I'm kind of thinking maybe I can convince my son to go there for his birthday dinner.
There you go.
It's got mac and cheese.
Yeah. Yeah.
People there.
Ellen would be happy with that too, I feel like.
Yeah, we would love it. In the same location-esque, kind of just across the hall. If we're good with BOMA, yeah? We're
yes,
gonna move on?
Yes.
Okay. In the same location, kind of across the hall is Jico, which for dinner only. And this was another one that we kind of went back and forth on just because I'm like, it's very much kind of an adult vibe in there. It's I don't know, as a parent, especially with young kids, I always got so much anxiety taking my kids to kind of a fancier restaurant. Yeah. Like, am I going to ruin somebody's like anniversary dinner because my child is like tired, you know?
Right.
But if you go earlier in the evening, 5:30-ish crowds, like the earlier times, I think a lot of the adults that are celebrating something special tend to go a little bit on the later side. So then you'll still see kids that are in there. Do you want to talk about the options for food there for kids?
Yes, I was just looking because I wanted to make sure. So yeah, their dinner starts at 5:00. So if you're looking at timing wise, kind of what time you want to go, they do a 5 to 9:30. So plan accordingly for whatever you choose. So for the kids, they have 6 different options here. And again, this has a little bit more of a diverse menu. So they've got a market fresh fish. They've got a grilled chicken breast. They've got shrimp with kushari, which I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Kate?
Probably some sort of topping sauce, something that I don't know. I don't know for sure, but it's probably something you can ask for on the side or be left off if you need to.
They've got a steak sosati. I'm going to do my best at these pronunciations. Again, they've got a mac and cheese, and they've got a cheese pizza as well. So we haven't seen a ton of pizza, honestly, in the options that we've been given. So that there is a pizza option
I think they do like flatbread there, and I feel like that's why that's an option, because they probably have some sort of wood fire option.
Yes. Yeah. I will say it kind of cracks me up that looking at their menu, so then they have a bunch of sides that you can add to those. You get a selection of 2, and some of them are very standard seasonal vegetables, fresh fruit, but they have ancient grains as one of their sides, which just makes
because like for keto people, like don't they have ancient grains? That's like a thing.
So it just,
I don't know anything about keto, so just saying. What do you think? I'm making this up.
And they also have Pumbaa's dessert grub, which I feel like has to be like dirt pudding because that's super fun.
Cute.
And a make your own Mickey Mouse mousse too. So lots of fun dessert options for sure. I will say that depending on what you're ordering on this menu, the price does vary a lot. So the fish and the shrimp options are 18.50 and 17 respectively. Yeah, so that's pretty pricey for a kid's meal.
Yes.
The chicken breast is 15.50, the steak is 15, the mac and cheese and the pizza are both 10.50. So
Looks like the Mickey is like something you can paint, like
cute.
another white chocolate
Yeah,
print of a Mickey that you can paint with frosting
that's fun.
or some sort of gel.
Yeah, like gel food coloring or gel, something like that.
I don't know.
I don't know how that'll taste, but it will be fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
So again, this kind of made the list just because of the different options that they have. If you've got a kiddo who really likes fish or shrimp, then this is a really good option if you're at Animal Kingdom. And the nice thing is for some of these that are dinner, Animal Kingdom closes fairly early. So it may just be something that you're able to do kind of on your way out of the park before you make it back to your resort if you're not staying there.
Yes. And I know we're doing Animal Kingdom Park. We're saying a lot of the ones that are Animal Kingdom Lodge, but that's because a lot of the best food is at Animal Kingdom Lodge, at least when it comes to ADRs in particular. There's a lot of great food inside Animal Kingdom that's like quick service.
Yes.
But most of the ADR amazing food is in the resorts. So,
yeah.
So along that vein, over in Kidani, which is next to Jambo House, and there's a bus that runs in between them, or you can walk. It's up to you what you feel like you'd like to do if you're at one and need to get to the other. But there's Sanaa inside Kidani, which is known for its bread service. If you've ever been to Sanaa, it does also have a really great view of the animals as long as it's still light outside when you dine. So if it's dark out, you're probably not going to see a whole lot.
Right.
But Sanaa is open for lunch and dinner, and also has like a lot of to-go options. So if you're staying in one of those resorts, you can also get that food to go. A lot of people don't know that's an option.
Yeah, Todd is
food there.
Todd is saying the bread service is a must in all caps. Yes.
Yeah,
so
it's the bread
besides
service.
the bread service, let's talk about what the kids' options are here. Again, kind of a little bit standard, a little bit more unique. They've got 4 options for the entrees. They've got just a fish of the day. They've got cheese pizza. They've got butter chicken, and they've got a cheeseburger. So a little bit kind of standard fare, a little bit maybe more exploratory for your kiddos, depending on what it is that they're interested in. They also have the Pumbaa's dessert grub, which is, so if that is something that your kids are wanting,
Yeah.
you can find it both places.
Hope says we recently had a rice pudding there at Sanaa, which they loved, and she's not even a rice pudding girl. So maybe the rice pudding is a good option as well. This one is one my husband loves because he loves a good curry. So he loves Sanaa. I'm not a curry fan, so I find other things to eat there, like the bread service.
Kate says, "Give me all the bread."
Give me all the bread. Yeah.
Yes. And they like Kate mentioned, they have it's more of a kind of exploratory menu because they do have a lot of African flavors and African spices and things like that. But again, the great thing about Disney is when you go to places like this, they are really good at accommodating, or if you request, like Kate mentioned, putting like a topping or a sauce on the side, a lot of the times they're going to be able to do that for you, which is really helpful.
Yeah. And I think my kids did eat here one time, and they liked it, but it's not one that they like asked to go back to very much. Probably because the food was just a little bit different. So that's, know your kids. If they are, there is a lot of options for kids who are not adventurous eaters, but I would say it's not one that we would probably go back to except for my husband and the bread service.
Right. But Michael asked a good question over here. He asked, did they stop serving breakfast? No, they do still have breakfast options there. Like we mentioned, we are just kind of focusing more on lunch and dinner just because it's easier to kind of compare across the board. But Sanaa does have a breakfast option as well. I will just say that their breakfast options for kids are very limited. So take a look at that. If you're wanting to do Sanaa, but maybe dinner doesn't fit your schedule or lunch or whatever, they don't have a ton for kids, but they have enough that most kids are probably they've got waffles. They've got Mickey waffles. So like most kids are going to be happy with Mickey waffles. They've also got like eggs. So one or the other when it comes to the kids' options. Unless
that's very aptly put there, Jackie.
Yeah. I do what I can, you know.
Well, Sanaa is also fairly affordable, I would say, out of all the things, especially for kids. It's again in that, 11 to 14 and a half price point. So that's for Disney, that's fairly affordable.
Yeah. And I mean, the fish, wherever you go, if it's fish or shrimp or steak, those are going to be your more expensive options. It's that way no matter what menu, if it's a kid's menu or an adult menu. So the fish of the day is $14.50, but then like the cheese pizza is $11.50. So you're in that range with whatever you order.
Right. Well, we have one more in the Animal Kingdom area.
Yes.
And that is over in the Coronado Springs Resort. And this is the Maya Grill, which I openly admit I have never been to Coronado Springs. So I don't know if
either.
Okay. But I've heard a lot of really good things about the resort, but because it's a bus only resort, it makes me like not want to stay there. Personally.
That's fair. So they do over at Maya Grill, over at Coronado, they do dinner only over there. So there is not a lunch option there. But for their dinner options for kids, they do have 5 different options. They've got a kids taco, which you can do chicken or beef with that. They've got a quesadilla. They've got grilled chicken breasts. They've got chicken tenders and macaroni and cheese. But it is a white cheddar cheese sauce with their mac and cheese. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. Rainey over here says, go, it's amazing for Coronado Springs. And I have heard that it's a really lovely resort. So no hate on Coronado Springs. I just haven't stayed there because of the bus situation. Yeah. It's more about my disdain for buses than anything else.
Which we may have heard a little bit about earlier. Yeah. So, but for price point, as far as that goes, all of those options are $12 except for the quesadilla is $12.50. So you got to pay extra for the cheese, apparently, with that.
I don't know, but this looks really good. Roasted poblano potatoes gratin. This is like the adult menu. I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks kind of good.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like cheese and potatoes. So, oh, look, they have churros too. They're probably Disney World churros though. But look, probably churros. Probably.
Yes, it's a fried churro ice cream. Fried baby churros is what the menu says. Topped with a scoop of vanilla ice cream.
So if you need a churro fix, it's another place for it.
Yes. And then as far as the adult menu, it's very similar to what I just read. Like they've got enchiladas and quesadillas and fajitas and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of fare you're going to get over at Maya Grill.
Yeah. It does look like a good place to eat, I would say. If I'm ever in Coronado Springs, might have to visit it.
There you go. Yes. And like we said at the beginning, disclaimer, we have not eaten at all of these places. We are simply going based on research and looking at menus and prices. So we hope that these options are helpful if you're planning an upcoming trip to maybe at least give you some different options to look into or maybe get you out of your go-to comfort zone like we talked about earlier of wanting to order the same thing every time. Maybe this will give you and your kiddos a new experience to try out together.
I feel like Dwayne said where the pass was good way back when. I'm trying to find
the Landry's Pass. I had it pulled up, but I hadn't found the location.
T-Rex, Rainforest Cafe, Yak and Yeti are a few of them. That's what it says. So
the boathouse. The boathouse is in Disney Springs and Yak and Yeti. Looks like those 4 locations on Disney World property.
I learned something new. I didn't know all of those were included. So I've heard of it before, but never really learned much. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, you learned something new, right? That's what we're here for. Teaching ourselves and in turn teaching all of you.
And I feel like something we didn't address yet, Jackie, in this, since we're starting this new series, is just to remind people that you can use the reservation finders, but the best way to get your ADR is to be 60 days out, right? 60 days out from the day you check in, and it is 6 a.m. online, East Coast time.
Yes.
So whatever that is for your time zone, do those calculations there. And if you plan, I always try to get the most difficult reservation to get closer to the end of my reservation, because there's less people that have booked then, because you can get your reservation, like the whole length of your reservation, starting on that date. So you don't have to, unless you're not staying in a hotel or resort, you can, for the entire length of your trip, you can book all your reservations that first day. So just think of whoever checked in the day before you also could book all of their days of their stay. So try to get your more difficult reservations closer to the end. I usually make a little list of like the order that I'm going to do it in. And I just go one at a time. I have noticed that for me, at least, if I have multiple tabs open on my browser, sometimes it will kick me off of a reservation if I'm trying to do more than one reservation at the same time. So I just work methodically one at a time, so that I don't lose anything in the process. But that's the best way to get the reservations you want, is that 60 days out at 6 a.m. Eastern time. Be on your device. I usually use private browsing mode so that none of the cookies mess you up. So make sure you log in, do you have any other tips for that time, Jackie?
Well, and I know that people will tend to check the app and the computer. Computer tends to be easier to use when it comes to that. But there is something to be said of kind of checking both to see. Something to keep in mind is if you're doing reservations, you need to make sure you have some of them ask for credit cards up front. Some of them you're going to have to enter your phone number to confirm and things like that. So just it can be time consuming. So you got to be quick, but you got to make sure you fill everything out too at the same time.
Yeah, you can also, in your Disney account before your ADR date, you can go and add your card, your preferred card, and have that ready to go. So your information is already in there and you don't have to waste time adding your credit card info or whatnot. So that's something I definitely recommend doing before your ADR date comes. If you need help calculating what that date is, there is I'm trying to remember who does it. Mouse for Less. There's somebody that does a vacation calculator where you can just plug in your date of check-in and it'll give you all the important dates that you need to know. And so I use that for any trip I go on. It's really very handy to have. And then I plug it in my calendar, my personal calendar, for which dates I need to kind of pay attention to, so that I don't forget. So that is how you get these really good ADRs, the ones that are really popular. Try to do it 60 days out. If not, you can use any of those reservation finders that we mentioned earlier. But that's what you want to do for making sure you get what you want and eat where you want.
It's a science, man. It's crazy. It's a science. You gotta know what you're doing and go confidently.
Yes. Go confidently into booking your ADRs.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that wraps up the our portion of the show that's about our advanced dining reservations. I know that we have another Ask the Moms portion of this show. Are we ready to move on to that?
I think we are. And then we'll recap at the end and let you all know what's coming next. So stay tuned for that. We're getting there. So every episode that we do on our podcast, we end with our Ask the Mom segment, where we take a question from our Mom Street community and we give our best quick answer to the best of our ability. So this question for this week is, are the individual Lightning Lane rides all worth spending money on? Which I think is a really good thing to consider when you're going to, and I think we should answer world and land, kind of both aspects of it. I think it's a really, really good question.
Yeah, it's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we always say it depends on all of these, but it does. It depends on your budget, first of all, because they can get very expensive because you're paying per ride per person.
Right.
So if it is a ride that your vacation would be ruined if you didn't get to, if it's so important to you that you get on this ride because it's going to be a make it or break it for you, then you might want to consider it, depending on the ride, of course, and your budget.
Right.
But I'll answer Disneyland. Maybe you can answer Disney World.
Sure.
So for Disneyland, the individual Lightning Lane, there's not that many. We have Rise of the Resistance over in Galaxy's Edge for Disneyland. We have Radiator Springs Racers. I think there's only 2, right? From what I remember.
Sounds right.
Yeah, you're like, I think so. We did a whole series on Genie Plus where we went over these in detail. But I will say that for Radiator Springs Racers, it's a really tough one because you can try to rope drop it, but as soon as those individual lightning lanes start going into the line, it makes that line extremely long.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, if you can't either rope drop it or go at the very end of the night when the park is closing, right before it closes, and then nobody else can go in those individual lightning lanes. If you can't do those 2 times, you might want to buy an individual lightning lane for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's probably similar with Rise of the Resistance. If you're not going to rope drop it, that one's not open all the way till close. It closes earlier. But if you want to catch it in the evening time before the queue closes, if you're not going to do those 2 times and it's a must do, then you might want to consider getting individual lightning lane. That's my best advice for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Disney World, let me just go park by park because that'll be the easiest. So if we're looking at Magic Kingdom, your 2 options for individual lightning lanes are Tron and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Tron, I would do virtual queue over individual lightning lane. The only reason that I would buy the individual lightning lane is if that is your top choice ride and you want to ride it twice.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that is going to run you at least $20 per person.
Whew.
Yeah. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I typically don't buy. It's usually $11 to $13 per person for that one. That one is fairly, I won't say easy, but if you're on your game and you know what you're doing, it's a good one to rope drop. You can ride it during fireworks, which is another time that the line will be low.
It'll be like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on the day.
Which I think is reasonable. I would wait 30 minutes for that ride.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And then same thing with right before park close with that one. Epcot, your option for individual lightning lane is Guardians of the Galaxy. Same thing with what I said for Tron. Same thing applies to Cosmic Rewind. So if I would do the virtual queue, I would only buy it if you want to ride it twice, or like, I guess I should mention, if you miss the virtual queue and you aren't able to get it and you're worried about getting the 1 p.m., ease your anxiety. If you're willing to buy it, just buy it. When it comes to that. Do keep in mind that for those 2 virtual queue individual lightning lane ones, there's no standby line. So Tron and Cosmic Rewind do not have a standby line. So it's either virtual queue or individual lightning lane.
Yeah.
At Hollywood Studios, your individual lightning lane is Rise of the Resistance. And kind of similar to what Kate was talking about for the Disneyland version, you can buy it. That is honestly the easiest way to ride it if that's a top one on your list. But doing that at park close. Do not rope drop Rise of the Resistance. Please don't do it.
Yeah, it's really different in Disneyland versus Hollywood Studios. They're not the same.
Yeah, so Hollywood Studios, you do not want to rope drop Rise of the Resistance. I strongly discourage it. But doing that right within the last, 15 minutes of the park being open is a good time to go. Or if you can, honestly, the other time is if you can catch it when it's just come back up from being down, because it does tend to go down frequently.
It's true. You could just kind of stalk it during the day and see if it goes down.
If you notice that it's down and you have a little bit of time to spare, just kind of hang out in that area, peruse the marketplace, maybe do some bounty hunting, and just keep an eye on it. If you can hop in line right after it comes back up again, that's a good time to do it too. And that leaves Animal Kingdom. Flight of Passage is your individual lightning lane there. I would rope drop it if I were you and you have early entry. If you do not have early entry, I would probably buy the individual lightning lane for that one. You can try and go again at park close. Like we talked about, getting in line before the end of the park day. That is another option. Animal Kingdom is tricky because it's just fact that a lot of people don't stay open to close.
Right.
So you got to kind of weigh your options with that one.
I think Flight of Passage is such a tough one because it's like, it's always long. It doesn't really matter when you go.
Yep.
Unless you're like super early
Right.
in rope drop, you might be able to wait a little bit less time. But I feel like the whole day, it's just long.
Yeah.
And it just is what it is.
Yeah. And that one will cost you, generally it's around 15 for the individual lightning lane for that one. So it's kind of in the middle. Just kind of in the hierarchy, Seven Doors Mine Train is your cheapest individual lightning lane. And currently Tron is your most expensive. Rise and Cosmic sit kind of on the upper mid, and Flight of Passage sits on like the lower mid, so to speak, in the hierarchy of cost for those.
Sometimes you can catch Flight of Passage if it's raining, like pouring down rain. So a lot of people will abandon that queue because a lot of it's outside. So if it starts pouring in Animal Kingdom, maybe try to head towards Flight of Passage. You might have a lot of people that are abandoning the line because they don't want to stand in the rain.
Right.
So put on your poncho and go.
Right, exactly. So hopefully that answers the individual lightning lane question. Again, like Kate mentioned, it's really up to your priorities and your budget when it comes to those rides. Do I think all of them are necessary to purchase? Absolutely not. So definitely take a look at your options for each of those particular rides and plan from there. Shall we briefly mention what's to come on our next few episodes?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So like we mentioned, this is part 1 of our ADR series that we are planning. It actually is going to be 4 parts as we kind of dive into the different locations. So part 2 next will be Hollywood Studios and Epcot and their resort areas. Part 3, we are going to talk about Disney Springs and Downtown Disney. So we're going to kind of jump coasts in that one to kind of bridge the gap between Disney World and Disneyland. And then part 4 will be all about Disneyland and California Adventure. So the plan is to hit all of those for our next 4 podcast episodes in kind of a little not so mini series on ADRs.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to dig into these and kind of like virtually go to all the ones that maybe we haven't gone to before or haven't thought about that much, and get out of your Disney rut sometimes. But also make the ADRs at places that make you happy, right? That's what we learned about in this.
Yes. A little bit of adventure, a little bit of comfort food. Kind of do maybe one, if you got a couple of days, you got lots of options.
That's right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Mom Street USA. It's really fun to dig into all of these ADRs and talk about them, and especially in the context of which ones would be good for kids to go to, and also that the adults can enjoy as well. So Jackie, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, I think I have some new places to add to my list at these locations. So I'm excited to see what's to come at the other locations, and now I have to start saving to budget for them.
Me too, indeed. Well, thank you everybody for being with us. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you next time for Mom Street USA.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.